Oh, I'll video.
That's good now. I just, for whatever reason, I have 14. That's really funny. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
I'm Joel. And a couple things are going to happen over the next 14 minutes or so. Melba's going to harass me about the clock because I tend to talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. I love being up here, as you'll see as I get a little more excited. And I'm here to express gratitude, tell you a little bit about my story. In the 15 minutes, I'll probably tell you a couple of stories. The idea is to demonstrate how grateful I am, to give you a little insight about your impact. And here we go. So from beginning to end, the simplified story is my son was the second youngest baby ever to have a liver transplant. To speed up to the now, that's him. This isn't a sad story. I'm going to try to get you emotional a little bit in the middle of it, but in terms of this part, he is as much of a walking miracle as you'll see. And he's a teenager now, so it used to be, how's your son? He's doing amazing, but now there's a caveat, because he's a teenager and a mini-me. And so, in 2003, it was a year for me that was going to end up being one of the most shape-shifting experiences that most human beings could endure. I was trying to graduate college and managing 3 jobs and found out I was going to become a dad and trying to work things out with my son's mom because that's what you're supposed to do, and then how do you behave as a dad. And my grandmother went in for a regular routine back surgery at Jackson and ended up with a medical error and losing her life, and I learned I was about to fight and deal and heal from thyroid cancer, all within an 8-month period. I started off that way because the things that I'm going to talk about, that 8-month period was a bit of a validation. So, what does that have to do with organ transplants? Well, at that time, I had no idea really about the organ transplant world. I grew up in East Hollywood, and in the atmosphere that I grew up in, we didn't really talk about our future, let alone the idea of organ donation. So, Justin's born, and he is premature. Premature babies are a little yellow. Right? So what do you do with the yellow baby? You take him in the sun, put him by the window. As advanced as medicine is, take your yellow baby and put him by the window. Okay. So he's still yellow, he's not getting any better, he's still yellow, but nobody thinks it's a big deal because premature babies are always yellow. Okay. So 3-month checkup comes up. Living in Margate at the time, and I'm driving down to Jackson every other day or so to see my grandmother. And you know when you're in the doctor and they do that echo test, that weird test, they're tapping on you, okay? The liver's so big that it's hollow. And when something's big and hollow, you tap on it, it has like a hollow sound. Doo, doo. I don't know if that's a doo-doo, probably doesn't sound like that, but doctor goes tap, 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 and looks over his shoulder and goes, you have to go to Jackson. I grew up in Hollywood. Anything past the Ives Dairy Road is like a different part of the world. And now I got to go where? But okay. So we take our kid to Miami, to Jackson, where they do, I guess, what they would call an assessment on him. More of those echo tests. Ultrasound. Justin had what they found out Justin had what's called biliary atresia. Atresia is a big medical word for things that are hardening up. And biliary has to do with the tree, it looks like a tree inside your liver, that filters out red blood cells. The sun helps that process. With Justin's, that tree had collapsed. His liver at 3 or 4 months old was like that of an alcoholic. But I knew his mom's wasn't drinking. She wasn't partying, but didn't really quite understand what was going on because I had all the other stuff going on. And even if I didn't have any of the other stuff going on, in the middle of all that, your body tends to put you in this surreal stress bubble, right? So you don't have to feel all the details. You guys have been through emotional and physical stress. It's all the same. Your brain goes into this survival bubble, thankfully, so you don't have to deal with it. So now we're inside the doctor's office waiting and waiting and waiting, and they're like, okay, cool, we're going to do this Kasai procedure. They weren't like, okay, cool. They were like, hi, Mr. Nagelbush, but just for the story, okay, cool, we're going to do a Kasai procedure. Mechanical. The tree broke. They're going to take tubes, reroute it, blood filters, good to go. Okay. Well, so go ahead and do that. All right. It's going to be a 3-hour surgery. We'll see you in a little bit. Come out of surgery, sorry. The Kasai procedure didn't work. Oh, that sorry got you a little nervous, huh? Said, sorry, the Kasai procedure didn't work. We got to put him on a list for transplant. Okay. So when are we going to schedule that? Well, we can't. Well, why not? Because there's not enough organs. What do you mean? I was 27 years old at the time, and through gun violence and drug addiction and just life, I had been to almost 30 funerals. So if I've been to almost 30 funerals, plus I know there's other people dying every day, what if people are dying every day but we still don't have organs, well, what's the problem? As you know from presentations and the data, 22 people die every day on that list. There's more than 22 people dying every day. Where's the organ? Now, that question gets repetitive, and if you've ever been around a doctor, doctors don't like repetitive questions. But Hollywood's starting to come out at me, and I want to know, where's the organ? Why can't we get on the list? Where's it at? Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Nagelbush. Now, when you're in a confrontation, to have to say my last name over and over again is even more frustrating, but it was getting a little entertaining. So it's like, hey, listen, why don't we just get the organ? Check him in. Now, the medical error that cost my grandmother her life wasn't just one of those adverse events, like, oh yeah, it was a straight up communication error. Okay? The facility, my grandfather settled out for millions of dollars, which my grandfather gave back. I'm pointing it out because I'm in an atmosphere now, well, what do you mean? We just gave all this money to the hospital? You can't get me an organ? Because in my head I'm thinking it's about the money. But it's not. It's literally about a process. And there's just not enough donors. And there's not enough donors because people don't know. So now we wait. Okay, so what do? Well, you go home. Do what? Well, why? Because he can't get a transplant until he's really sick. What do you mean? He's got the liver like an alcoholic, but he's not really sick. Really sick. Well, okay, so we go home. And of course, he gets more sick because if your liver's not working, well, you're obviously not going to feel better. And the harder it gets, the organs, it's a big deal. It's huge. If something's hard here, what do you think it's going to do to blood pressure? Push it back against the heart. What do you think your lungs are going to do? They can't expand. And you certainly don't want to eat. 5 months old? Now we're in the hospital and we can't leave. Okay. And we're waiting. Why are we waiting? Because still people don't donate organs. Why don't they donate organs? Because of myths, because of straight up cultural differences. I'm not slamming anybody. If there's anybody in here that's not a donor, listen, I understand. I don't agree with it, but I get it. The thing is the organs that you have in your body were given to you as a gift by something. What you call your God, whether it's the universe or Jesus or Moses or whatever, it doesn't matter. We can agree that your God is all good, all knowing, all loving. Our parent, none of you are considered God's adults. It sounds a little weird, right? So we're here to learn. I'm mentioning that now because those 8 months was a time for me to learn. It was a time for me to get to a place where I'm at now so I can have an impact. Impact is where I wanted to take the conversation with you guys. Because most of the donors sign up because of you. And just because you sign up doesn't mean you're going to get to donate. My wife is a firefighter. I can promise you that when they get to somebody, let's take a motorcyclist for instance. Firefighters call people on motorcycles donors. We're driving down the road, she's like, oh, there's a donor. When they pull up to somebody who's been in a terrible accident, they are not going through your stuff, look at your ID and go, he's a donor, let's get him. I'm also not going to be up here telling you that the system is perfect, that you can't manipulate it. Okay? Because if I had trillions of dollars and I needed a kidney and I found somebody that is a match, all of a sudden they're going to be my cousin. Because I would do that to save my life. But the system's set up so the myths that you hear don't really impact the donation process. Whether you're white, black, it doesn't matter. I mean, for those of you who ever had a racial conversation, and there's not a lot of white people in here, so the conversations happen a lot, we are all the same inside. Black person's organ's going to work just as well as a white person's organ works. Okay? So it doesn't matter if you're white or black, they're just not going to take it from you. If it can save a life, it's gonna. I got to be the way I am, growing up in Hollywood in the hood, and my boys. My son, who has a large piece of a 10-year-old black kid's liver, has some soul in him. It's funny. We laugh about it a lot. Like, dude, I don't know where you got that, but it's funny. He's like, I know, Dad. So it's about the life process, having a conversation with somebody. Your impact on people donating is huge, right? Let's go back to that God you believe in, right? Whether you believe in karma, you do right for others, it's all the same. Do good for others, and hopefully it gets back to you, right? Or when it's time to be up there, and that question's being asked you, what'd you do with your life? Or your universe is looking at you going, what'd you do with your life? Well, for you guys, you get that credit, right? Because you had a conversation with somebody that happened to become a donor. You get that credit of saving 8 lives and impacting another 250. Not that you're bad people, but if you were some bad people and then you get up to God and be like, what'd you do with your life? Man, I did a lot of shady stuff, but I got 22 people to sign up. I hope it's not a negotiation like that, but you get my point, right? It's about the impact. And yeah, you might think it's just a conversation, you're in work, you're doing this all day long, 60, 70 hours a week. It gets monotonous, as anything would, but you just don't know. You just don't. So, Melvin, how are we on time?
Yep. We got about 5 minutes.
5 minutes, okay. So, the you just don't know section. I'm going to finish with a story that's not mine. I robbed it from Stephen Covey and added a little animation to it. But I'm hopeful that when you get those customers to step up to the desk and they seem the most resistant to the conversation about organ donation, don't get discouraged because you just don't know what's going on in people's lives. So, the story starts like this. I want you to picture New York City, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, subway. One of the 2017 subways that's hot and muggy and nasty and shuts down all the time, but it's packed. Dad gets on the subway with 5 kids. It could be 6 kids, 7 kids, whatever you want, whatever you need in your head to get this story right. And he gets on, he sits down, and he's all slouched like he had a rough day, and the kids start going crazy. I'm a little older, so for those of you who don't know, these kids are behaving like Day Day's kids. And it's a mess. They're pulling stuff and kicking stuff and pushing, and they're acting up. Dad's not saying a thing. At this point, you guys are starting to think to yourself, man, he needs to get a hold of these kids. And so are people in the subway. Because you can know, it's New York. People are real quick to let you know about what you need to know in New York. So?
They still have it politely.
They still do. So, for this particular story, it wasn't the polite New Yorker. It was a lady who just got her purse smacked out of her hand. It'd make me mad too. Not because of the actual smacking of, I have a purse, but that it got on that dirty floor. And the lady starts going crazy on the dad. Hey, what are you doing? Watch your kids. Why don't, and just lean it into him with some F-bombs and, picture it in your head, right? Dad looks up and says, I'm sorry, their mom just died and I don't know how to tell them. All of a sudden, you'd hold your purse out. Fellas, you'd hold your jacket. Like, it'd be okay. Because you just don't know. Somebody's up at your desk and, hey, organ donation. No, I don't want to do that. Don't carry that resistance with you. Don't let it stifle you. They might be going through something. They might not. Because there are times when people are just not nice. But you have a chance to impact. Okay? And for those of you who aren't donors, for those of you who are donors, you have to know, you need to communicate that with your family. My grandfather's been ill for the past, he's old, 88, and the process, okay? And my family thinks I'm crazy. They know I'm a little crazy. As you know, I'm a little... And I told them, listen, we're going to have the conversation about organ donation. What are your end-of-life choices? For those of you that naturally feel uncomfortable with that process, know that conversation is coming. Whether it's this weekend, whether it's New Year's Eve, or whether it's Christmas or next year, it's coming. It could be in 25 years. But you're going to have that conversation either over a table or over a bed. And I can promise you, even with a transplant kid in our family, that organ donation is unnatural for people's brains to think about. So is death. I'm not asking you to get comfortable with it. You shouldn't fear it. Just because you don't know doesn't mean you should fear something. But you should have the conversations with your family. Let them know. My wife, my son, anybody that's around me knows if I'm sick, if I'm in a hospital and I'm not Joel anymore, let me go. Donate my organs. Have the impact. Steal some of that credit. I don't believe in ghosts, but I let them know I will haunt you. Let me go. Okay? To touch on the myths a little bit, back to the firefight, back to the wanting to be buried with your organs. I believe that your God would want you to do everything you can to save as many of his children as possible. I believe that. If you're in a situation where you can find the time to talk to people, to let them know that they can help with organ donation, you should. If you can help, you should. You have a responsibility to. Have the conversation with your family. Discuss it. See what they say. Maybe they're good, maybe they're not. Just because you sign up doesn't mean you're going to be a donor. Your name's on the registry, you got to die in a hospital. Okay, somebody could use it. I can feel them starting to look at their watches now. The funeral homes, you want to get buried with your organs? They will do that. But for those of you who aren't anatomy, physiology specialists and doctors, let me enlighten you a little bit that your body is puffed up and swollen, not because of all the crap we eat, but because there's blood and oxygen in it. And when you die, there's no more blood and oxygen inside your body, so they embalm you. They embalm you. Okay, what do you think happens to your organs when there's nothing in them? They flatten out. But people want to be buried with their organs. You didn't do anything to get them. You shouldn't be doing anything to keep them. So, give what you can. Help what you can. Help who you can. The funeral homes have a policy, a process called treating. They take your organs and respect your wishes and put them in a bag inside your chest, zip you up, and bury you with them like you wanted to. I guarantee you it's like leaving the wedding ring at the house when you're ready to get married. I didn't do that. I made sure it was on. But you know what I mean? Because now you're showing up for the big day and, oh, hey, God. Oh, man, you did good with those organs? Because you're going to have to say something anyways about all the stuff you put through it, right? The drinking and the partying and the stress. So, yeah, I hooked some people up with them. I gave the gift of sight. I gave the gift of breath. I gave a heart or two. Skin, bones. My grandfather looks at me like, man, what do you want, man? You can donate? He's been struck by lightning, 2 heart attacks, 3 different types of cancer. He's got 8% of his heart working, 2 lobes, and he's got a sense of humor today. It's amazing. And legitimately, he's wondering, what are you going to do with my body? And I'm like, all those things are the reason why we should study your body. I hope you have a wonderful New Year. I hope you have a great holiday and Christmas. Please have that conversation. Thank you for being here today. I'm grateful for it. And at any time you need or want or can let me talk, I will jump on it. Because Justin's transplanting the cancer and all that stuff. I look at the reason for them is because of this. I'm sincerely grateful for it. Have a good week. Thank you.